Good morning, Chris McLaughlin. It's Wednesday, October 26th, 2016. Just getting ready for work, having my breakfast, and thinking about how I'm going to vote on the California props in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today, we'll be waking up to find out who's the new president-elect. In California, we assume it's going to be the Democratic candidate. Everyone thinks that the 55 electors are going to be for Hillary. So it'll be interesting to see how many conservatives vote for Gary Johnson and how many true liberal progressives vote for Jill Stein. But I think we're pretty much resigned to the fact that California's a blue state for the president. So it's a little more interesting to see what's going on with the ballot props. There's 17 of them, and I'm going to run down my thoughts from a progressive perspective. I'm not going to run down in order. I'm going to put like an executive summary in the comments, or I'll actually have a spreadsheet, a Google sheet that I'll link to in the comments, the YouTube comments, or on my Facebook for like the summary if you just want to go and see what those are. But I want to go in order of what I think is most important from a progressive perspective, because a lot of these things are kind of philosophical discussions, and then there's like ones that are about budget considerations basically. So with that being said, number one, I think, is Prop 59, the one about Citizens United. It's not that long. It's like less than a paragraph. It doesn't have a whole lot of teeth. It doesn't really do anything. It basically just says, we, California, think that Citizens United ought to be overturned, and like we want the legislature to do as much as possible. So, I don't know what they're going to do with that. A lot of people are against it. They're like, oh, who knows what they'll mean. It's a waste of time. And well, so it doesn't really do much, but it basically is like a statement. It's kind of like a proclamation. It's not really a law. It doesn't do much, but it basically says that I think Citizens United is terrible and we should overturn it, which I think most people would agree with. I think it'll probably pass pretty easily. I think money has polluted politics way too much. I think everyone's agreement on that. Or you should be, at least. Number two, Prop 64, Marijuana Legalization Initiative Statute. So Prop 64 is the big marijuana statute. We've already seen it in Colorado and Washington. The thing that stands out for me is the revenue estimate is additional tax revenues ranging from high hundreds of millions of dollars to over $1 billion annually, mostly dedicated to specific purposes, reduce criminal justice costs of tens of millions. So they expect to save some money as far as prisons and locking people up, not a whole lot, but they expect to make a whole lot of money from sales tax, of taxing marijuana, decriminalizing it, making the sale legal for adult use. So it's 21 and over. It's not for kids. It's like alcohol, I guess, but it's going to be taxed and regulated. So the critics of this are saying, well, first of all, everyone's going to start smoking pot. It's going to, destroy society, which I think is fairly debunked from the example of Washington and Colorado. Not a whole lot of bad things have happened since they decriminalized it there. They've made a whole lot of money. And so the other critics I see say, well, it's not perfect, or it's going to be like in 5 years, it's going to put all the small farmers out of business. It's going to be like another big crop. It's like, okay, well, it's just a law. It's not a constitutional amendment. So the other thing about California props is some are constitutional amendments, which are much harder for the legislature to do anything about because there's a higher bar. Like you have to have more consensus to change a constitutional amendment, whereas a regular law, you can change it just as much as any other law. So it's easier to change down the road. So this isn't a constitutional amendment. It's just an initiative statute. So next year or in 5 years, if something needs to be adjusted as far as the regulation or the tax revenue or the distribution or whatever, then you can. And the other thing I like about this is that it says, well, we're going to stop chasing adults for having about an ounce of marijuana, or like up to like 3 or 5 plants or something that's not within view. So there's protections in there for children, and they say, well, we can focus more of the law enforcement on children because we won't be chasing all the adults that are just using it for recreational purposes. And it also doesn't affect the medical marijuana statute. It's already legal in California. A lot of people, pretend they have back pain or glaucoma and get their doctor to write a prescription. So we'll kind of do away with that nonsense. So just go to the store and buy it if you're really just using it for recreational purposes. So that's an easy yes on 64 for me. Number 3, Prop 61 is the big one about state prescription drug pricing. So this one has a lot of people saying it's going to make medicine too expensive. A lot of times these props, I look at see who supports them, and then based on who supports and who against it, I figure they've actually read the whole thing and have really thought it through. So the big one supporting this is Bernie Sanders. He's come out, he's held some rallies, and he's done some analysis, he's done some op-eds in the LA Times. Basically, other state agencies won't be able to buy prescription medicine unless it's the same price the VA pays. So the VA is like the largest, biggest purchasing power medicine purchaser, medical healthcare system, hospital system in the U.S. So they have really low prices because they have huge volume. So it's saying like California, other state hospitals and agencies can't pay more than the VA does. So a lot of people say, well, how are you going to implement that? How do you regulate the drug companies, pricing? It's like, well, they're going to offer the same pricing because they want to still have that business. And basically the theory is, how are they able to charge so little to the VA and charge so much to everyone else? They compare it to Canada and other countries and say, we're going to find someone that'll sell us medicine at a lot lower price. It's just, it's fixing the market, so to speak. I think we're on kind of a path towards more of a universal single payer system. So this is a step in that direction. I don't know if it'll pass though, because a lot of people think that, it's going to make prices more expensive, especially for veterans. I think it has to do with the VA. Like the VA is going to have to raise their pricing, or they're going to pass it on to veterans who go to the VA. I don't think any of that's going to happen. So I'm not worried about that. So I'm voting yes on 61. What else? Oh, by the way, they send you the full text and the cheat sheet. And I recommend taking the cheat sheet to the polls. Like if you walk up to the polls like this, they will know exactly if you're in the right polling place. They'll know your name. So do that. And then you have your cheat sheet. You just take this into the ballot and mark it up and you're done. So number 56, Prop 56 is an additional $2 tax on cigarettes. Now the big thing about this is that we've got the most mailing on this. This is the most expensive prop. That's another thing about the drug prescription one, is how much money they're spending to defeat it indicates that they know they're going to lose a lot of money. Same thing on 56. We've gotten doctors saying it's horrible. It adds a $2 increase, like an additional sin tax to cigarettes, $2 per pack. They got math teachers saying it doesn't add up. They got people daring you to read the full thing, which is like this other thing I have. So yeah, well, this is what's funny. On all these, it says paid for no on 56. Stop the special interest tax grab. That's what they call it. Like, major funding provided by Philip Morris USA, R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company. Big surprise. Big Tobacco doesn't want to have people charging the $2 per pack. And they also say a coalition of taxpayers, educators, healthcare professionals, law enforcement, labor, and small businesses. So basically, they want you to think everybody's against this, but it's really the tobacco companies. The part about the bad math is that we passed an additional proposition earlier saying if you have new taxes, a certain portion has to go to schools. And this thing exempts itself from it. It's saying this whole $2 is going to go to other things like healthcare and some other stuff that's related to cigarette smoking, educational programs to stop smoking. So it doesn't go to the schools like the other proposition says. That's why the math teacher's saying it somehow rips off the schools. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it may decrease a little bit of people buying cigarettes, and so they say if the existing sin taxes get too low, some of the money from the new sin tax will go to that. So I think they've thought it through, and it's not bad math, and it's not really hurting schools. It may decrease smoking. So I'm voting yes on 56, $2 more per pack. Number 5 in my book, the death penalty. So we get to either ban the death penalty with a yes on 62, or we just change the appeals process, like shorten the appeals process would be a yes on 66. There's 2 propositions dealing with the death penalty. So I'm voting yes on 62, the one to ban it completely. They think it will actually save a whole lot of money because anybody on death row is just going to be life imprisonment with no possibility of parole, which is way cheaper than trying to execute somebody. So it doesn't make sense to keep them in jail longer. It's cheaper than to keep them in jail shorter. But the appeals process and all of that is so expensive. So we're going to save up to $150 annually within a few years. And then 66, it doesn't repeal the death penalty, but it shortens the appeals process. So it saves some of the money, but not all of it. So those are like competing propositions. So I'm saying yes on 62 and no on 66. The other one that has two of them is the carryout bags. So grocery bags, 65 and 67. So 67 is a ban on single-use plastic bags, and then 65 is not a ban, but the money goes to like some other fund. So I'm saying yes on 67 and no on 65. The reason why is the people for and against are exactly opposite. So I think what happened, like 65 came out by some plastic company, and so somebody had to make 67 to sort of as like a counter proposition against 65. The people for that are California versus Big Plastic, which looks like a real office in Sacramento, whereas the other people are like supposedly from out of state and they just have like a P.O. box. So the one I'm voting for actually bans it. It bans like free grocery bags, single-use grocery bags. The grocery store can sell you the bags, but then they get to keep the money. So I think with the other one, they have to sell you bags and the money goes somewhere else. So that's like typical California using the ballot props wrong. So yes on 67, no on 65. And then let's see. The next one, legislature. So this one, Prop 54, I'm saying yes. Oh, this is, they're going to have to put anything they decide on, the state legislator, on the internet for 72 hours before they can decide. So this is a basic sort of, more disclosure. The only downside I could see is if there's some kind of emergency, it's like a 3-day waiting period to pass a bill, to pass a law. It is a constitutional amendment too. So it's not going to cost too much, like $1 million to just get it set up to be able to have this website. But I think it'll give people a chance to read everything. And then if they try to sneak something in, they're going to get busted unless they do it on Friday and vote on Monday. Might be a slow weekend, who knows. Anyway, so yes on 54. 56, or no, 58. I'm saying yes on 58, which is English proficiency and multilingual education. So this thing, a yes allows schools to have bilingual programs, meaning programs in English and Spanish. Right now, you can't have any like bilingual programs. It has to be all in English. And so the yes people saying, well, if you're a new immigrant, you don't speak any English, and a school decides they have enough people to have like a class where instruction is in Spanish because they know zero English, then they can do that. Right now they can't do that. So the opponents are saying, well, it's better just to have all English and it makes people learn faster. I don't know, you can kind of go either way, but what I like about this is that's the local control, that it allows you to take control if your district wants to do it. It doesn't mandate it. So, and it's just a law, it can be changed, it's not a constitutional amendment. Number 11 on my list, firearms, Prop 63, I'm saying yes. What it does is it tries to confiscate some guns from people who shouldn't have them, increase background checks, and then I think you have to there's more process on buying ammunition. So I'm not really that into guns. I read through this. If I was into guns, it wouldn't really stop me being a lawful gun owner from getting ammunition or buying a gun. It would stop people who are criminals. Probably not a lot. They'll probably just get a gun somewhere else. So who knows how effective it'll be. Hopefully it won't cost too much. It said it may be tens of millions of dollars to actually go out and confiscate guns from people that have them. So that's kind of a boon to law enforcement as far as like they think they're losing money on some of these other ones. So it's like sort of more money for the police industry. So I don't know. I'm voting yes. I don't know if it'll pass though. A lot of people have strong feelings about guns, Second Amendment people. Who knows if it'll pass, but I'm voting yes on 63. What's next? Criminal sentences, Prop 57, parole. So I'm voting yes on 57. What it does is, if you're a juvenile, you have to have a hearing in front of a juvenile judge before you get tried as an adult. And then it release some non-violent felons. The literature I've been getting is like, this is horrible and it's going to release violent felons. That's the fear coming out about Prop 57. But I don't think that fear is justified. It's very clear. It's only releasing nonviolent felons. And I basically think the prison industry is way too overfunded. So I'm voting yes on 57. I don't know if that'll pass, though they'll probably scare people into keeping more people in prison. People in California are a little freaked out sometimes. 60, adult films, condoms, health requirements, initiative statute. So I'm voting no on this. What a yes would require porn stars to wear condoms filming adult films. So they've already banned this in LA County, and this would ban it statewide. But it doesn't actually affect the consumption end at all. They're just going to make porn without condoms somewhere else, usually in Florida. So it doesn't affect the availability at all. It just, I think what happened is LA banned it, and then surrounding counties increased their porn production without condoms. And so those counties are like, let's get it out of the state completely. So part of it, the reason why I'm voting no is it's kind of disingenuous. It's like you say it's about worker safety, the health, concerns of porn stars, but it's really just they want to get rid of porn. And so it's an anti-porn, which I'm not pro-porn, but I mean, I'm sort of libertarian about whatever. I don't think the government should be that involved if that's what you're into. So I'm voting no on 60. 55, tax extension to fund healthcare education. So I'm voting no on this, not because I'm not for supporting education and healthcare, but I'm voting no because it goes into like 30 years. It goes up to 2030, so like another 10, 15 years of tax extension. And it's an initiative constitutional amendment, which means it's harder for legislation to change it. So these kind of budget things that sort of like lay things out for years in advance, I'm not really into that, just because on principle, because I think the legislature should do their job better. And so I'm voting no on that. 55. And then what else? 52. This is the Medi-Cal hospital fee program. I'm actually voting no on this. I think the reason why is because it takes effect like a year or two from now. There's already a thing where Medi-Cal has to pay, hospitals have to pay, and expires, I think, in January of 2018. So I think they figure they want to make this permanent. And so that's kind of the permanent part I have a problem with. And then it's a constitutional amendment, so it's going to be hard to undo. So I'd rather sort of let the legislature do their job a little bit more. This will come up before the next big prop thing, because every 2 years is the midterm elections, every 4 years the presidential elections. So this may expire, and it may cause some issues with funding. But I generally think the legislature should do their better job of dealing with funding. Plus, I think the way healthcare is going, I'm voting for the drug program one, the drug cost one, 61. And there's some other things with healthcare happening. With Obamacare and ACA, who knows what will happen. So, and things are kind of in flux. So I'm voting no on 52. And then also on 51 is school bonds. We've got some stuff on this, saying it's going to ruin schools. I think the reason I'm voting no on this, because it's like another tax thing to sell $9 billion in bonds. So this is like a purely budget thing. It's the first one on the list, which makes me think it's like the professional ones. It's like basically the legislature can't do their job, so they let's make it a ballot prop. Let's make it the first one. Another $9 billion in bonds, which actually costs like $20 billion to repay, $500 million per year for 35 years. So that's like another thing with California in their budget, is they put all these things in there, that all these entitlements, meaning it's like encoded into law, and the legislature can't decide whether to spend the money or not. They just have to. So this is another one of those things. So I'm voting no on that. And then the last of the 17 is 53. I'm voting no on that one because it says over $2 billion you have to get statewide approval. I think that's just like another budget game, and it's not going to really affect things. Like big projects have to be approved statewide is basically what it is. But they'll just chop the projects up into smaller ones, or if there is a real big project they have to do, like transportation, like light rail or something. I think it's like an anti-light rail thing. So I'm voting no against that. I think it won't do much. But that might pass. So some of these budget ones may pass, even though I'm voting against most of them. And who knows what else will happen. I'm pretty sure we're going to legalize pot. We'll probably give Citizens United the finger. We probably won't kick out condom-free porn. else? I hope we ban bags. I hope we ban the death penalty. And I hope we stop paying so much for drug medicine. So, I don't know. There's a lot to look forward to in 2 weeks in California. These ballot props are kind of all over the place. It's interesting to see the kind of stuff they let us vote on. But yeah, that's what the ballot prop thing is good for, more the philosophical ones. The ones where the legislature can't do their job as far as the budget. I'm generally against those. I'd like to try to force the legislature to compromise a little bit more and be not quite so polarized. So 20 minutes, it's kind of a long review. I'm going to put a cheat sheet into the comments and whatnot, link to my Google sheet that I have. The other thing is, if you have any feedback or you think I'm not seeing something that I should have saw, or there's some other unintended consequence going to happen, or some cost that's, we're going to be surprised with, let me know, and I may change my mind. If I'm completely wrong, I may reshoot another retraction and link it to it or something. All right, later. Take care. Have a good Wednesday, and remember to get to the polls in 2 weeks. It's important to vote, even if all the candidates are terrible. Thanks. Bye.